In 2015, I was going through a breakup while also trying to figure out how to write my literature master's thesis. A friend suggested that we get away to Moab, Utah for the weekend, and I went with the intention of not thinking about the stress of school or relationships. We hiked to Delicate Arch at sunrise. As we crested the final corner around a wall of red stone, the sun peeked over the LaSalles and reflected these brilliant beams of light across the arch. Suddenly, it felt like things in my life were a little more clarified, and awe and wonder overtook stress and despair. It was this moment, and so many others, that have shown me that our time in nature can be so much more than a good sweat, an adrenaline rush, or a temporary escape. I believe that outdoor recreation can be an intentional ritual that transforms us and emboldens us to create a better future. Now, when you think about ritual, you might think about something you do every day, like how you make your coffee each morning, or maybe a religious ceremony. Scholars say that ritual is both an action and idea. It's how and why we do an activity, and also how it creates meaning in our lives. The ritual that I want to share with you today is the retreat and return. Now, this comes from the literary genre of pastoral literature, where the author or character retreats into nature and then returns with insight for society. I believe that outdoor recreation fits perfectly in this model. So first, let's talk about the retreat. Now, you might think that I'm talking about escapism. We talk about disappearing into the woods and never coming back. And that's always been a temptation. Even ancient Roman writers were writing about the Golden Age and the good old days and the mythical promised land that existed before the complications of society or developers or other trail users. But I believe that the ritual of retreat is intentionally stepping away and taking a pause so that we can better understand ourselves and the world. In ritual, we find a separate place from our ordinary lives where something extraordinary can happen. And I believe that we can do this by getting our bodies moving in nature, whether that's a walk in the park or 20 miles in the backcountry. Philosopher Edmund Husserl wrote that walking is how we measure ourselves against the world. Writer Rebecca Solnit says that through walking, the mind, body, and world are all aligned. I'd say the same thing about mountain biking, ski touring, or rafting. Through the ritual of outdoor recreation, our mind, body, and emotions are all together on the trail. There's a phrase in Latin that I love, solvitur ambulando. It is solved by walking. Walk it off, we tell people. Take a breather. In Moab, each step that I took, I could feel the walking wringing out a little bit of my sadness to create the joy that I felt at the top. I believe that a retreat into nature can be a subversive detour from the pounding demands of our hyper-productive society, where we slow down, reevaluate, and breathe. But see, this brings us to the second part of the ritual, and the great irony of pastoral literature. In order for the journey to be understood, there has to be a return. We retreat into nature, but we're meant to return to the world with insights about its path forward. After my epiphany-inducing experience in Moab, I had a newfound clarity of what I wanted to write my thesis about. That experience and the writers who think about it. I wanted to better understand how we incorporate these extraordinary experiences in nature into our daily lives. Forever, wrote French surrealist author René Dumel. You have to come down again. So why bother in the first place? Well, just this. What is above knows what is below, but what is below does not know what is above. Here we come to the second part of the ritual, which is the return. But what are we returning with? Well, we can return with clarity to address a situation that stepping away allowed us to gain. This could be as small as a fight you're having with someone, or as large as how we solve climate change. When I was trying to figure out how I wanted to structure this talk, I couldn't really crack it, so I went on a mountain bike ride and actually ended up having to stop and take notes on my phone. The ritual of return can also be about catharsis, and I know that many of us have felt this emotional release on trail. I found myself crying on a difficult mountain bike ride as all my emotions get jostled up to the surface, and I often go on trail for these reasons, to understand my emotions, release them, communicate them. We can return with a new construction or deconstruction about our values, our ideologies, how we view the world and its path forward. And finally, this ritual can be a mirror that we learn from. It's a form of reflection and critique to creatively respond to society's needs. In pastoral literature, the whole point of the retreat away from the complications of society was so that we could explore them and ideally solve them. It's a way for us to critically examine the material values of our society. A great example of this actually comes from American literature, from Henry David Thoreau, who retreated into nature to live deliberately and give up his prejudices. His time in nature inspired his writings on civil disobedience, which were an inspiration for thinkers like Martin Luther King Jr. His time in nature also solidified his staunch opposition to slavery and inspired him to operate a safe house on the Underground Railroad. Senegalese environmentalist Baba Diome said this in 1968. In the end, we will conserve only what we love, and we will love only what we understand. Or, I would argue, what we have experienced. Scholars say that one of the main aspects of ritual is to bind a group together through shared values so that they're cohesive enough to survive. This ritual of outdoor recreation can be a way to connect us to the environment that we're growing more and more distant from each day, and to each other through shared values. I have a friend who believes that our outdoor spaces are one of the last few places that we can truly come together as a society, and I agree. I believe that our time outdoors can be more intentional and a way for us to catalyze transformation in our society. Now, in the end, I don't know what your exact retreat is. For some, it's their favorite bench in a nature preserve or their annual trip through the great national parks. For others, it's months on the Appalachian Trail or weeks on the Grand Canyon. For me, it's mountain bike rides, trips to the desert, and backpacking excursions with my partner. In the end, I invite you to find what your retreat is. I hope that you'll have your special Moab moment so that we can retreat away and we can return with the insights that the world needs together. Thank you.